Today we will be talking about tips to take better dog photos of your dogs at home. Now these first few you can do with any kind of camera that you want. If you've got a phone camera, a small action camera, or even like a full DSLR, these tips will help you take better photos with any of those. So the first one is you always want to start off at the dog's level 95% of the time. Unless you're going for that straight down shot of the dog looking up at you. You want to make sure you get down to low at their eye level. Alright, so I'm here with my sister Morgan and our dog Finn, and we're going to use Finn as our model today. So when it comes to getting at eye level with the dog, it's basically when he's sitting down or if he's even lying down, you want to make sure your camera is at his head level. So that way instead of getting shots from up top going looking down, you're getting shots directly head on.
That's a good boy.
Alright, so another few good tips, and one is, as Morgan was demonstrating earlier, you want a few treats to be able to give the dog to keep him distracted or just paying attention to us and not everything around us. And you can also work with the owner so that you can, as you're trying to take a photo, the owner is walking around you and getting the dog to look in specific spots or use certain keywords or phrases like whistles, sounds, any kind of thing that can get the dog's attention or the dog's trigger words that make them look up, act up, and do exactly what you need them to in the moment.
Good boy.
Get him to look in like several directions.
Good boy, stay.
So one thing you do have to worry about when you take photos of dogs is that they don't always sit in one position forever, so you do have to keep in mind where the sun is. So always try to keep a reflective material on you, like a reflector, or you can use like a white piece of cardboard to just bounce the light back on the other side so you don't get harsh shadows on one side and sunlight on the other. Or if you have a separate flash, you can offset on a small tripod to flashlight to balance it out on both sides. Helps a lot in the long run. I'm gonna have my sister hold it to show you the difference with the dog.
Good stay.
So another good thing that I have on you in all times is a bag or container of treats, because it doesn't matter what the keywords might be and what the distractions might be. Dogs will eventually get tired, and every dog's incentivized by food or treats. So it's always good to have a small bag or container with a handful of treats in it. So that way, when worst comes to worst, you have some food to incentivize the dog and to refocus the dog. But one thing you do want to keep in mind is when you're taking photos of dogs, you want to make sure that the eyes are in focus, because when it comes to all creatures, eyes show the most detail and kind of most of the personality of the animal. So we kind of want to make sure when you're focusing in your camera that their eyes are tack sharp. Now it's okay for the nose to be a little out of focus, because the nose will always be closer to the camera, especially on dogs because of how long their faces are. You always just want to make sure at least the eyes are in focus. So if you can change the aperture on your phone, then this next tip will help. But the others, you're going to need a more professional camera, which allows you to change the aperture and the shutter speed and even the ISO if you need to going forward. So another thing to keep in mind is the aperture of your camera. So a lot of people like to use 2.8 for really nice, solid, like dreamy kind of portraits, but the hard thing is with dogs is that their faces can be so long sometimes that if you go down to 2.8, you might get their eye in focus, but then their whole face and nose might be out of focus. So I typically like to stay in the 5 to 8 kind of range, so you make sure you get like their head in focus and then everything else behind them is blurry. So I'm gonna go through 2.8 through a various of apertures all the way up to f22, just to kind of show you how the background is changing. So one thing you'll notice is from 2.8 all the way up to about 10 or even 8, you mainly get one part or the whole head in focus, and then the background is still blurry enough. But then the problem is when you get up to 14, 16, and 22, that's when the whole background starts to become more in focus, and then you lose that portrait, dreamy kind of perfect kind of shot. It just looks like more and more like a regular screenshot on a phone. So one thing you also want to make sure you get is some photos of the owner interacting with the dog. So that way they not only get photos that they can remember and look at their dog by, but they also have photos of what it was like to interact with their dog as well. When you're taking photos of dogs, the two lenses that you want to have with you is a 24 to 70 and then a 70 to 200. So you basically have the range from 24 to 200. So having something wide enough at 24 allows you to get a wider shot if you need to do a portrait with the dog and the owner. And having something that can go all the way up to 200 allows you to get a nice action shot if the dog is 20 to 30 feet in front of you, either running or trying to catch something in midair. And another thing to keep in mind when you're doing action shots of dogs, you need to make sure that the shutter speed is super high. So you really want to maybe be up around 400, 500 plus if you're taking photos of dogs running, because dogs are so much faster than you think. You need to make sure that you get the shot incredibly still and crisp in the image. And then another setting you might want to try, because if dogs are running at you at full speed, you're not going to be able to manually focus as they're coming towards you, and the autofocus really won't be able to keep up if you keep trying to hit the button down to recorrect it. So you want to switch it from one shot to Al Servo. And this is a mode on the camera where you're basically telling the camera to guess its best, so when it's trying to move. A lot of sports photographers do this, where this setting, all you have to do is hold down the button or the clicker, the shutter, and the camera will basically look at what's in front of it and try to decide what should be in focus and just instantly try to kind of track that in a sense. So if you've got a dog moving, if you keep your camera aligned on the dog, the camera will be doing its best as the dog is moving towards you to keep that dog in focus as it's moving. So one thing you're always going to do is edit your photos just a little bit before you actually post them or send them to anyone. Most cameras have a little editing software built into the camera apps, or if you download specific camera editing apps onto your phone. For example, I know Adobe has a Lightroom version that you can put on your phone mobily and edit photos that way. So for example, a lot of times I like to make my dog photos a little bit warmer, making it a little bit bright but not too bright so it's not blown out. Then just adding in a little bit of clarity and texture to make that fur really stand out, to really make the fur feel fluffy, or like you can just reach out and touch it. You know the texture of the dog just by looking at the photo. Now when you're trying to photograph puppies, it becomes a little bit more difficult, because especially when a puppy is untrained, it's not going to sit or listen to the owner. So the best thing to do is to use a mid-ranged aperture from about f5 to f8, have a bag of treats on you, tire the puppy out so that it's still interested in what you're doing, but it's most likely going to sit in one place to kind of catch its breath or regain its energy. So it's still going to be active and looking at you, but it won't be physically moving at all. So a lot of times when you're trying to photograph a new puppy, this is going to run straight up to the camera and they're going to knock you right out of focus, and just everything's going to be blurry. So that's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any other questions or comments that you have, leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. If there's enough of them, that I'll make a second follow-up video, hopefully with my puppy when it's more trained, answering all the questions you guys might have. If you want to see more photos of dogs, check out my website at jc95.live. I've got a gallery and portfolio section displaying both of these, so if you're going through the website, you'll most likely run into them somewhere. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them below as I just mentioned, and I'll see you guys next time.